The massive warship cut through space like a blade through silk. Its dark metal hull stretched for miles, covered in weapons that could turn planets to glass. This was the Dominion's pride, flagship of the Zephyrian Empire, and today it carried the scent of another easy victory. Admiral Crix stood on the command bridge, his forearms crossed behind his back. His purple skin gleamed under the ship's lights, and his large black eyes reflected the stars beyond the viewport. Like all Zephyrians, he was tall and thin, with a head that came to a sharp point. His people had ruled the galaxy for over 3,000 years, and they had never met a species that could stand against them. "Report," Crix commanded, his voice echoing in the vast chamber. "The third planet is fully scanned." "Admiral," replied his second-in-command, Lieutenant Vex. "The natives call it Earth, population approximately 8 billion. Technology level is primitive. No space defenses detected. No orbital platforms. Their most advanced weapons appear to be chemical explosives." Crix's thin lips curved into what passed for a smile among his kind. Another easy conquest. "These humans will make good workers for our mining colonies." The bridge crew laughed. It was always the same story. Every new world they found was weaker than the last. The galaxy had grown soft under Zephyrian rule. No one dared to fight back anymore. "Admiral," called out the weapons officer, "we have captured several specimens during our surface raids. Should we dispose of them?" "Not yet," Crix said, walking toward the main screen. "Bring one to me. I want to see what these humans look like up close." Minutes later, the bridge doors slid open with a soft hiss. 2 Zephyrian guards marched in, dragging a figure between them. The human was old, maybe 70 years by their species standards. His hair was gray and thin, and deep lines marked his weathered face. He wore simple clothes, a blue shirt and brown pants that looked like they came from a farm. The guards threw him to the floor in front of Admiral Crix. The old man slowly pushed himself up to his knees, then looked around the bridge with calm, steady eyes. He showed no fear, no panic. This surprised Crix. Most primitive species begged for mercy or cried when brought before him. "So this is what a human looks like," Crix said, walking in a circle around the kneeling figure. "Weak, soft, no natural weapons, no armor plating. How did your species even survive long enough to build cities?" The old man said nothing. He just watched and listened. "Look at this pathetic creature," Crix announced to his crew. "Its skin is so thin you can see the blood vessels underneath. Its bones are hollow and brittle. One of us could break it in half with bare hands." More laughter filled the bridge. Lieutenant Vex approached for a closer look. "Admiral, notice how small its brain cavity is. No wonder they never developed faster than light travel. They probably never will." "Indeed," Crix agreed. "We found this one on what appeared to be a farm. Can you imagine? While we cross between stars, they still scratch in the dirt like animals." The old man's eyes moved slowly from one Zephyrian to another. He seemed to be studying them, memorizing their faces and voices. When the weapons officer leaned down to get a better look, the human noticed the rank markings on his uniform. When Lieutenant Vex spoke about their ship's engines, the old man's gaze shifted to the technical displays behind them. "Admiral," said the communications officer, "we are receiving surrender signals from the planet's major population centers. They are offering to submit without resistance." "Of course they are," Crix laughed. "They know they cannot fight us. Their weapons are toys compared to our power." The old man spoke for the first time, his voice quiet but clear. "What will happen to my people?" Crix looked down at him with amusement. "The strong ones will work in our mines and factories. The weak ones will serve in our homes. Your children will be raised to serve the Empire. In a few generations, humans will forget they were ever free. And if we refuse?" "Refuse?" Crix's eyes went wide with mock surprise. "Oh, little human, you have no choice in this matter. We have conquered over 1,000 worlds. Every species in the galaxy bows before the Zephyrian Empire. Some fought back at first, but they all fell in the end." The bridge crew nodded and murmured agreement. They had heard these words many times before, spoken to many different species on many different worlds. "Your armies have already surrendered," Lieutenant Vex added. "Your leaders are preparing surrender documents as we speak. Face the truth. Humanity is just another addition to our empire." The old man was quiet for a long moment. Then he asked, "How many ships do you have in this fleet?" The question caught everyone off guard. Crix blinked his large black eyes. "What? Your fleet? How many ships? Why would a primitive farmer need to know military information?" the weapons officer demanded. I am curious, the old man said simply. I have never seen ships that can travel between stars. In my long life, I have only heard stories. Crix decided to humor him. After all, what could one old human do with such information? We have brought 200 warships to claim your world. Each one could destroy your largest cities with a single shot. 200, the old man repeated thoughtfully. And you said you have conquered 1,000 worlds? 1,047 to be exact, Crix said proudly. We are the greatest military force in galactic history, the old man nodded slowly. I see, and how long does it usually take to conquer a world? That depends on how much they resist, Lieutenant Vex answered. Most surrender within days once they see our power. The foolish ones who fight back last perhaps a week or two. But in the end they all fall, the weapons officer added. No species has ever successfully resisted the Zephyrian Empire. The old man looked around the bridge again, his eyes taking in every detail. The computer displays, the weapon controls, the navigation systems. He watched how the crew moved, how they communicated, how they organized their command structure. Take him to the detention cells, Admiral Crix finally ordered. We will decide what to do with him later. Perhaps we will keep him as an example for the others. As the guards lifted the old man to his feet, he spoke one more time. Thank you for the information, Admiral. It has been very educational. Something in his tone made Crix pause, but he could not identify what bothered him. The human was led away, his footsteps echoing in the corridor beyond the bridge. Shall we begin the planetary occupation, Admiral? Lieutenant Vex asked. Yes, Crix replied, but his eyes remained fixed on the doorway where the old man had disappeared. Begin landing operations. I want this world secured within 48 hours. But as the crew began preparations for the invasion, Admiral Crix could not shake the feeling that something was wrong. The old human had shown no fear, asked strange questions, and observed everything with the careful attention of someone who understood far more than he revealed. For the first time in his long military career, Crix wondered if perhaps they had underestimated their enemy. Down in the detention cells, the old man sat quietly on his metal bench staring at the wall, but his mind was far from quiet. He was thinking about fleet formations, weapon ranges, and communication frequencies. He was thinking about the mistakes his captors had already made, and he was thinking about home. 3 days passed aboard the Dominion's Pride. The old human sat in his small metal cell, eating the tasteless food they brought him and sleeping on a hard bench. But he was not idle. Every time a guard came by, every time he heard voices in the corridor, he listened and learned. On the 4th day, Admiral Crix decided to visit him personally. The cell door slid open with a sharp hiss. Crix stepped inside, his tall frame filling most of the space. Behind him came Lieutenant Vex and 2 other officers, all eager to see their admiral question the primitive. Human, Crix said, standing over the old man. I have come to learn about your species. My scientists tell me you are quite unusual. The old man looked up calmly. How so? Most primitives we encounter are either terrified or angry when captured. You seem peaceful. Why is that? I am too old to waste energy on emotions that serve no purpose, the old man replied. Fear will not free me. Anger will not protect my people. So I choose to observe and understand instead. Lieutenant Vex laughed. Observe? What could you possibly understand about our technology? Your species has barely learned to leave your own planet. True, the old man agreed. We are very behind compared to your people. Perhaps you could help me understand how you became so powerful. Crix smiled. He enjoyed showing off Zephyrian superiority to lesser species. Very well. I will educate you about the greatest empire in galactic history. Over the next hour, Crix spoke about their conquest of the galaxy. He told stories of great battles, of worlds that fell in days, of species that begged for mercy. The other officers added their own tales, each one trying to impress their admiral with their knowledge. Our technology is beyond your comprehension, Lieutenant Vex boasted. These ships can travel faster than light itself. Our weapons can destroy entire continents. Our shields can stop any attack. Fascinating, the old man said. How do your shields work? They create an energy barrier around the ship, explained the weapons officer eagerly. Nothing can penetrate them except our own weapons. And how do you power such incredible devices? Quantum reactors, Crix answered proudly. Each ship has 3 primary reactors and 6 backup units. They generate more power than your entire planet uses in a year. The old man nodded thoughtfully. That explains why your ships are so large. You need space for all those power sources. Exactly, said the engineer who had joined them. Smaller species always build tiny ships because they do not understand true power generation. Size equals strength in space warfare. As they talked, the old man asked more questions, simple questions that seemed to come from curiosity rather than intelligence gathering. How fast could their ships travel? How did they coordinate attacks across multiple star systems? How did they communicate with their homeworlds? The Zephyrians answered freely. After all, what could one old primitive do with such information? Your logistics must be incredible, the old man observed. Supplying fleets across such distances, coordinating thousands of ships, managing conquered territories. It sounds very complex. It is, admitted Lieutenant Vex. But we have perfected these systems over thousands of years. Every ship knows its role. Every commander follows the same tactics that have never failed us. The same tactics? Of course, Crick said. Why change what works perfectly? We surround the planet, demonstrate our power, and the primitives surrender. Simple and effective. The old man was quiet for a moment. Then he asked, what if they do not surrender? They always do, the weapons officer laughed. Once they see our true strength, resistance becomes pointless. We have never encountered a species foolish enough to fight us seriously. But what if you did? The old man pressed gently. What if you found a world that had prepared for your arrival? That had studied your methods and built defenses specifically to counter them? The Zephyrians looked at each other and burst into laughter. Impossible, Crix declared. No primitive species could match our technology. Even if they had warning, they lack the knowledge to build effective weapons. But say they had help, the old man continued. Say they had access to technology from the worlds you have already conquered. Could they not learn from your previous victories? Learn what? Lieutenant Vex scoffed. Every species we defeat becomes part of our empire. Their knowledge serves us, not their former worlds. There is no one left to help new planets resist. The engineer nodded agreement. Besides, even with stolen technology, they would need decades to build a proper defense fleet. We can conquer any world long before they could mount effective resistance. That makes sense, the old man agreed. Speed is your greatest advantage. Strike before they can prepare. Exactly. Crix was pleased that the primitive finally understood. This is why the Zephyrian Empire is unstoppable. We have perfected the art of rapid conquest. The next day brought new visitors. This time it was a group of young officers who had heard about the talkative human. They came to see the primitive for themselves and to share stories of their own victories. I was present when we conquered the Altair system, boasted one lieutenant. 7 planets fell in just 5 days. The Vegans lasted only 3 days, added another. They tried to hide their fleets behind their moon, but our sensors found them easily. No species has ever successfully hidden from Zephyrian detection systems, said a third officer proudly. The old man listened to every word. He asked about scanning ranges, sensor limitations, and detection methods. The young officers, eager to impress each other, shared technical details freely. Your sensors can see through any camouflage? The old man asked. Any camouflage created by primitives, one lieutenant corrected. Advanced species might have better stealth technology, but we have not encountered any in over 1,000 years. What about natural phenomena? Solar radiation, asteroid fields, gas clouds? Those can interfere with our sensors, admitted another officer. But no species has ever been clever enough to use such tactics against us. More days passed. More officers came to visit the old human who asked such interesting questions. He became something of a curiosity aboard the ship. Even the ship's captain stopped by to see him. I hear you are fascinated by our military capabilities, Captain Thax said during his visit. I am fascinated by efficiency, the old man replied. Your people have created the most effective war machine I have ever heard of. How do you maintain such perfection across so many ships and so many battles? Training and discipline, Captain Thax answered proudly. Every Zephyrian warrior follows the same procedures, uses the same formations, executes the same strategies. This uniformity makes us unbeatable. Uniformity, the old man repeated thoughtfully. So every fleet commander would react the same way to the same situation? Of course. Why would we want unpredictable behavior in our military? Chaos leads to defeat. Order leads to victory, the old man nodded. Very logical. And these standard procedures, are they written down somewhere? Studied by all officers? Every officer memorizes the complete strategic manual. Captain Thax confirmed. It contains every proven tactic and formation we use. 3,000 years of military wisdom in one comprehensive guide. Remarkable, the old man said. Such knowledge must take years to master. A lifetime, Captain Thax agreed. But it ensures that every Zephyrian commander thinks and acts like every other. Our enemies can never predict our moves because we always choose the most effective option. As Captain Thax left, he felt good about his conversation. It was always satisfying to explain Zephyrian superiority to lesser species. The old humans seemed to truly appreciate their military genius. But if Captain Thax had looked back, he would have seen something troubling in the old man's eyes. Not admiration or fear, but calculation. The human was not just learning about Zephyrian tactics, he was learning how to beat them. That night, alone in his cell, the old man closed his eyes and began organizing everything he had learned. Fleet compositions, weapon ranges, sensor limitations, tactical procedures, communication protocols, all of it freely given by an enemy that was too arrogant to see the danger in their own words. Tomorrow would bring more visitors, more questions, and more answers. The Zephyrians thought they were showing off their strength. They were actually revealing their weaknesses. 2 weeks had passed since the old man's capture. During that time, the Zephyrian fleet had taken complete control of Earth's orbital space. Reports from the planet's surface showed human governments surrendering one by one. The conquest was proceeding exactly as Admiral Crix had predicted. The old human had become something of a mascot aboard the Dominion's Pride. Officers would stop by his cell during their off-duty, hours to chat with the primitive who asked such amusing questions. He had become harmless entertainment, a curious pet who seemed fascinated by their superior civilization. But Admiral Crix was growing bored with the game. Admiral, Lieutenant Vex reported during the morning briefing, planetary resistance has completely collapsed. All major cities have surrendered. Our ground forces report minimal casualties. Excellent, Crix replied, but his voice lacked enthusiasm. What about the human specimen we captured? Still in detention, sir. Several officers have found him. Educational. He seems genuinely interested in learning about our culture and technology. How touching, Crix said with sarcasm. But we no longer need him. Execute him tonight and broadcast the event to the planet. Let the humans know what happens to those who do not cooperate fully. Lieutenant Vex nodded. Should we make it public? Perhaps bring him to the main hangar bay? No. Just space him from the nearest airlock. Simple and effective. That evening, 2 guards came for the old man. He was reading a technical manual that one of the engineers had given him about Zephyrian ship design. The manual was written for children, but the engineers thought it would amuse the primitive. Time to go, human, one guard said, opening the cell door. The old man closed the book carefully and stood up. Where are we going? Admiral's orders. You are no longer needed. They walked through the ship's corridors toward the outer hull. The old man looked around with the same careful attention he had shown from the beginning. He noted guard positions, security checkpoints, and corridor layouts. Even facing death, he continued to gather information. The airlock chamber was small and cold. Through the transparent aluminum window, stars glittered in the darkness beyond. The guard sealed the inner door and began the execution sequence. Any last words, primitive? One guard asked through the intercom. The old man stepped closer to the window and looked out at the fleet surrounding them. Hundreds of Zephyrian warships hung in space like metal sharks, their weapons pointed at the blue planet below. Yes, he said quietly. I have something to say. Admiral Crix was in his private quarters when the communication came through. Admiral, the prisoner is requesting to speak with you before execution. Crix sighed. What could he possibly have to say? Unknown, sir. But he claims it is important information about Earth's defenses. Earth has no defenses, Crix muttered. But curiosity got the better of him. Put him through on video. The screen in his quarters activated, showing the old man standing in the airlock chamber. He looked calm and composed as if he were not minutes away from death. Admiral Crix, the old man said with a respectful nod. Thank you for allowing me to speak. Make it quick, human. I have important matters to attend to. Of course, I wanted to thank you and your crew for the education you have provided me these past weeks. I have learned a great deal about Zephyrian military doctrine. Crix frowned. Something in the human's tone had changed. The simple farmer was gone. replaced by someone who spoke with quiet authority. I have learned that your standard fleet formation places command ships in the center, with screening vessels arranged in a defensive sphere. The old man continued. I have learned that your quantum reactors have a specific frequency resonance that can be detected at long range. I have learned that your tactical manual has not been updated in over 300 years. The Admiral's blood went cold. How do you know about our tactical manual? Captain Thax was kind enough to discuss it with me, as were many of your other officers. They were very thorough in their explanations. Crix activated his personal communicator. Security, get Captain Thax to my quarters immediately. The old man smiled slightly. I should introduce myself properly, Admiral. My name is Marcus Chen. I hold the rank of Fleet Admiral in the Terran Defense Force, retired. I was formerly Supreme Commander of Earth's military forces. The words hit Crix like a physical blow. Impossible. Our intelligence reports showed no significant military leadership on Earth. Your intelligence was designed to see exactly what we wanted you to see, Chen replied calmly. Did you really think that in a galaxy full of conquered worlds no one would eventually warn the next target? Did you think Earth would be completely unprepared? Captain Thax burst into the Admiral's quarters, his face pale with panic. Admiral, our long-range sensors are detecting massive energy signatures throughout the system. They appeared from nowhere. Crix kept his eyes fixed on the human. What energy signatures? Unknown configuration, sir. The computer cannot identify the source. Admiral Chen nodded approvingly. Let me help you understand what you are seeing, Admiral. For the past 50 years, Earth has been in contact with survivors from your conquered worlds. The Altarians, the Vegans, the Centaurians, and dozens of other species, all of them eager to share their knowledge with someone who might finally stop the Zephyrian Empire. That is impossible, Crix said, but his voice was no longer confident. We control all space lanes. We monitor all communications. You control the space lanes you know about, Chen corrected. You monitor the communications frequencies you understand. But the galaxy is vast, Admiral, and your empire has made many enemies. Some of those enemies are very good at staying hidden. The ship's alarm began to sound. Emergency lights flashed red throughout the vessel. Admiral, Captain Thax reported, reading from his communicator. The energy signatures are resolving into ship configurations. We count, Admiral, this cannot be correct. What is it? Crix demanded. Over 3,000 vessels, sir. They are surrounding our fleet. Chen continued his explanation as if he were discussing the weather. Earth has had 5 decades to prepare for your arrival, Admiral. We studied every engagement you fought, analyzed every tactic you used, examined every weakness your enemies discovered before they fell. We learned from their mistakes. No primitive world could build 3,000 warships, Crix said, but his certainty was cracking. You are correct. Earth built them with help, Altarian shield technology, vegan stealth systems, Centaurian weapons, and a few innovations of our own. Did you know that human engineers have a particular talent for combining technologies in unexpected ways? The ship shuddered as something powerful swept across its hull. Admiral, Captain Thax's voice was tight with fear. They are scanning us. The scans are penetrating our shields like they do not exist. Impossible. Zephyrian shields are impenetrable. Chen shook his head. Not anymore. We know the exact frequency of your shield generators because Captain Thax was kind enough to explain the technical specifications. We know your weapon ranges because Lieutenant Vex described them in detail. We know your sensor limitations because your young officers were so eager to boast about their capabilities. Crix felt the weight of his mistakes settling on him like a crushing load. You planned this. Your capture was deliberate. I volunteered for the mission, Chen confirmed. Someone needed to confirm our intelligence about your fleet capabilities and deliver a message. At my age, I was the logical choice. What message? Crix whispered. Chen's expression hardened. His voice carried the authority of someone who had commanded fleets across star systems and made decisions that affected billions of lives. Your empire has terrorized the galaxy for 3,000 years. You have enslaved entire species, destroyed countless worlds, and murdered billions of innocent people. You have grown arrogant and careless because no one has been able to stand against you. The ship shuddered again, more violently this time. Admiral, Captain Thax reported, they are targeting our command vessels specifically. They know our fleet organization better than we do. Chen stepped closer to the camera, his old eyes burning with cold fire. You came to Earth expecting another easy conquest. You thought you would face a primitive species with no defenses and no allies. You were wrong. Crix found his voice. What do you want? Terms tribute? We can negotiate. We tried negotiation 50 years ago, Chen replied. We sent diplomatic messages to your empire, requesting peaceful contact. Your response was to accelerate your conquest schedule and move Earth higher on your target list. The Admiral's hands were shaking now. We can reach an agreement. The Zephyrian Empire is reasonable. The Zephyrian Empire is a plague that has infected the galaxy for too long, Chen said with finality. You asked what we want, Admiral. The answer is simple. He leaned forward, his voice dropping to a whisper that somehow carried more menace than a shout. You want war? We'll give it to you. The communication screen went black. Emergency klaxons wailed throughout the ship as the first human weapons began to fire. And in the airlock chamber, Admiral Marcus Chen smiled grimly as he watched the Zephyrian fleet begin to burn. The bridge of the Dominion's Pride erupted into chaos. Officers shouted orders over the wailing alarms while Admiral Crix stood frozen, staring at the black communication screen where the old human's face had been moments before. Admiral, Captain Thax called out desperately. We need orders. The entire fleet is requesting instructions. Crix snapped back to reality. His empire was under attack for the first time in 1,000 years, and he was the commanding officer. Fear and panic would have to wait. Battle stations, he commanded. All ships formed defensive formation Delta 7. Prepare to return fire. Lieutenant Vex worked frantically at his station. Sir, our ships are trying to comply, but the enemy appears to know our formations. They are positioning themselves to counter our maneuvers before we complete them. On the main screen, the space around Earth had transformed into something from a nightmare. Thousands of ships materialized from what had seemed like empty space, their hulls gleaming with unfamiliar technology. They moved with precision and purpose, surrounding the Zephyrian fleet in a complex three-dimensional formation. How did they hide so many ships? Crix demanded. Our sensors should have detected them days ago. The science officer looked up from his console, his face pale. Admiral, they are using some kind of adaptive stealth technology. It appears to adjust to our scanning frequencies in real time. Vegan stealth systems, Crix realized with growing horror. The humans said they had help from our conquered species. The weapons officer called out, Admiral, we have target lock on multiple enemy vessels. Requesting permission to fire. Fire at will. All ships open fire. The Zephyrian fleet unleashed its fury. Hundreds of energy beams and plasma missiles streaked across space toward the human ships. For a moment, Crix felt hope. No matter how many ships the humans had, Zephyrian weapons were the most powerful in the galaxy. Then the impossible happened. The human ships did not even attempt to dodge. Instead, energy barriers flared around their hulls, absorbing the incoming fire with ease. The beams that had destroyed 1,000 worlds barely scratched their shields. Report, Crix shouted. Direct hits on multiple targets, the weapons officer reported in disbelief. No damage detected. Admiral, their shields are not even weakening. Lieutenant Vex's voice cracked as he read from his instruments. Sir, energy analysis shows they are using Altarian shield technology, but it has been modified somehow. It is 3 times more effective than the original design. Impossible! We conquered Altair. We know their technology. Apparently the humans knew it better, Vex replied grimly. The human fleet began its response. Their weapons were unlike anything the Zephyrians had ever seen. Instead of simple energy beams, they fired complex combinations of different technologies. Vegan plasma wrapped in Centaurian gravitational fields, powered by unknown human innovations. The first Zephyrian ship to die was a heavy cruiser on the fleet's outer edge. The human weapon punched through its shields like they were made of paper, then tore the hull apart from the inside. The ship broke into 3 pieces, its reactor core exploding in a brilliant flash. Shield penetration, the weapons officer called out in panic. Their weapons are bypassing our defensive barriers. More Zephyrian ships began to fall. The humans targeted them with surgical precision, focusing their fire on command vessels and heavy units. They ignored smaller ships completely, as if they knew exactly which targets would cause the most damage to fleet coordination. They know our command structure, Captain Thax realized. They are deliberately targeting our leadership ships. Crix activated the fleet communication system. All vessels, this is Admiral Crix. Execute emergency scatter protocol. Break formation and retreat to jump points. But even as he gave the order, he knew it was too late. The human ships had positioned themselves to block every escape route. The Zephyrian fleet was trapped in a carefully designed killing field. Down in the airlock chamber, Admiral Chen watched the battle unfold through the transparent aluminum window. The guards had fled when the attack began, leaving him alone with the execution controls. But he made no attempt to escape. He was exactly where he needed to be. The door chimed softly behind him. Chen turned to see Admiral Crix entering the chamber, his purple skin darker with stress and his large black eyes wide with desperation. "Stop this," Crix demanded. "Call off your fleet." Chen turned back to the window. "I cannot. Even if I wanted to, I have no authority over the fleet command. I am retired, remember? Then contact them. Tell them we surrender." "Surrender?" Chen's voice was thoughtful. "That is interesting. How many species tried to surrender to you over the years, Admiral? How many worlds begged for mercy?" Crix was silent. "I remember reading the reports," Chen continued. "The Altarians offered to surrender after just 1 day of fighting. You refused and continued the bombardment for 3 more days. The Vegans tried to negotiate a peaceful submission. You destroyed their capital city as an example to others." "That was different," Crix said weakly. "We were establishing order." "You were establishing terror," Chen corrected. "And now you understand how it feels to be on the receiving end." Another Zephyrian ship exploded outside the window. The human fleet was methodically dismantling the invaders with terrifying efficiency. "You cannot win this war," Crix said, trying to regain some authority. "We have thousands of fleets across the galaxy. Even if you destroy this one, others will come." Chen smiled grimly. "Admiral, you still do not understand. This is not just about one fleet." He activated a small device he had hidden in his clothing since his capture. The device projected a holographic display showing star charts across the galaxy. "While you have been here conquering Earth, similar operations have been launching throughout Zephyrian space. Every world you ever conquered has been preparing for this moment. Your empire is not facing one rebellion, Admiral. You are facing 50 simultaneous uprisings." Crix stared at the hologram in horror. Red indicators flashed across dozens of star systems, showing active conflicts in every corner of Zephyrian territory. The Altarians are reclaiming their home system. The Vegans have allied with the Centaurians to retake the core worlds. The Rigelians, the Draconians, the Andromedans, every species you enslaved is fighting back at the same moment. "How?" Crix whispered. "How did you coordinate across such distances without us detecting the communications?" "Quantum entanglement networks," Chen explained. "A technology your empire never developed because you relied on conquest instead of innovation. We spent 50 years building hidden communication links with every resistance group in the galaxy." The ship shuddered as human weapons found their target. Emergency lighting cast red shadows across the chamber. "Your tactical doctrine assumes that each conquest is separate," Chen continued. "You never prepared for coordinated resistance because you believed it was impossible. Another weakness we were happy to exploit." Crix collapsed into a chair, the weight of defeat crushing down on him. 3,000 years, he mumbled. 3,000 years of dominance ended by primitives. "Not primitives," Chen corrected. "Students. We learned from every species you conquered. We studied every battle you fought. We analyzed every mistake you made. Your greatest strength, your consistency, became your greatest weakness once someone had time to study it properly." "What happens now?" Crix asked. Chen considered the question. Outside, the last of the Zephyrian escort ships was surrendering, its captain apparently deciding that survival was better than pointless resistance. "Now your empire falls," Chen said simply. "It will take time, maybe years, but the outcome is certain. You taught the galaxy that resistance was futile. Today we taught the galaxy that it is not. And then what? Will humans become the new galactic empire?" Chen laughed, a sound without humor. "Admiral, we have no interest in ruling anyone. We just want to be left alone to grow our gardens and raise our children. Once your empire is gone, we will help rebuild what you destroyed, then return to our farms." Crix looked at him with confusion. "You do not want to conquer? To rule? Why would we? Conquest brings nothing but enemies and responsibilities. We prefer cooperation to domination." The communication system activated and a voice filled the chamber. "This is Fleet Admiral Sarah Kim of the Terran Defense Force. Admiral Crix, you are ordered to surrender your vessel immediately. Compliance will result in fair treatment according to the laws of war." Chen nodded toward the communication panel. "I suggest you accept, Admiral." Admiral Kim is much less patient than I am. Crix slowly activated the communicator. This is Admiral Crix. I surrender my fleet. Acknowledged. Prepare to be boarded. As the communication ended, Chen finally activated the airlock controls to return to the ship's interior. Come along, Admiral. You have a great deal to learn about how civilized species treat their prisoners. Crix followed him numbly. Behind them, through the window, the burning wreckage of the once mighty Zephyrian fleet drifted silently among the stars. The age of the Empire was ending. The age of freedom was about to begin. 6 months later, Admiral Marcus Chen sat on the wooden porch of his farmhouse watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and gold. In his weathered hands, he held a cup of coffee that had grown cold while he read the latest reports from across the galaxy. The war was over. It had taken exactly 137 days to dismantle an empire that had ruled for 3,000 years. Not through superior numbers or better weapons, but through careful planning, precise coordination, and the collective rage of 50 enslaved species who had finally found their chance for freedom. Chen's small tablet displayed the final statistics. The Zephyrian home fleet had surrendered after a 2-week siege. Their capital world had fallen without a shot being fired, when the planetary defense grid was shut down by Altarian engineers who had helped build it decades earlier. Across the galaxy, one by one, every Zephyrian stronghold had crumbled as their former slaves turned their own technology against them. Grandfather? Chen looked up to see his granddaughter Emma approaching from the house. She was 12 years old with bright, curious eyes and an endless supply of questions about everything. Today she carried a school tablet displaying a news report. The teacher says you were in the war, Emma said, settling into the chair beside him. She says you were important. Chen smiled and set down his coffee cup. I was just one person among many, sweetheart. The war was won by millions of beings working together. But you were on the alien ship. You talked to their leader. I did. Emma studied the news report on her tablet. It says here that you volunteered to be captured. Why would anyone want to be captured by enemies? Chen considered how to explain complex military strategy to a 12-year-old. Sometimes the best way to defeat an enemy is to let them think they have already won. When people become overconfident, they make mistakes. What kind of mistakes? They talk too much. They show off. They forget that the person listening might be smarter than they think. Emma nodded seriously, then scrolled through more of the news report. It says the aliens had slaves. Lots of them. Yes, they did. Are they free now? They are. Every world that was conquered by the Zephyrians is now independent again. Some are rebuilding their old civilizations. Others are trying new forms of government. All of them are free to choose their own path. That's good, Emma said with the simple moral clarity of childhood. Nobody should be a slave. Chen nodded agreement. A soft chime from his tablet indicated an incoming message. The sender was Fleet Admiral Sarah Kim, now serving as Earth's primary liaison with the newly formed Galactic Council. The message was brief. Marcus, the Council has voted unanimously to offer Earth a permanent seat on the governing board. They want humanity to help lead the new galactic government. Your thoughts? Chen typed back his response. Politely decline with thanks. We prefer to remain advisors and friends rather than rulers. Suggest the Council rotate leadership among all member species. He sent the message and set the tablet aside. Was that important? Emma asked. They want Earth to help govern the galaxy, Chen explained. I told them we would rather not. Emma looked puzzled. Why not? If we won the war, do we not get to be in charge? Winning a war does not make you fit to rule others, Chen said. Besides, being in charge of a galaxy sounds like a lot of paperwork. I would rather grow tomatoes. They sat in comfortable silence as the sunset deepened. In the distance, Chen could see the lights of the small town where he had lived most of his adult life. Nothing had changed much since the war ended. People still went to work, children still played in the parks, farmers still tended their crops. That was exactly how Chen wanted it. Grandfather, Emma said eventually, what happened to the alien leader? The one you met? Admiral Crix? He is in prison on Altair Prime, along with most of the other Zephyrian military commanders. They are being tried for war crimes. Will they be executed? Chen was quiet for a moment. The Galactic Council is still debating that. Many species want justice for what was done to them. Others believe that execution would make us no better than the empire we fought. What do you think? I think Chen said carefully, that some crimes are so terrible that justice requires the ultimate punishment. But I also think that mercy can be more powerful than revenge. It is a difficult decision, and I am glad I do not have to make it. Emma processed this with the seriousness she brought to all important topics. The teacher says there might be other empires out there. Bad ones like the Zephyrians. There might be, Chen agreed. The galaxy is vast and we have only explored a small part of it. Are you worried? Chen looked at his granddaughter, then at the peaceful farmland stretching to the horizon. No, he said finally. I am not worried. Why not? Because if another empire like the Zephyrians appears, they will face something the Zephyrians never had to deal with. What's that? A galaxy that knows how to work together. A galaxy that remembers what freedom costs and is willing to fight for it. A galaxy that will not be caught unprepared again. As if summoned by his words, a shooting star streaked across the darkening sky. Emma pointed excitedly. Look, make a wish. Chen closed his eyes and made his wish. That the peace they had won would last. That the lessons learned would not be forgotten. And that his granddaughter would live in a galaxy where no species would ever again kneel before an empire built on cruelty. When he opened his eyes, Emma was watching him with curiosity. What did you wish for? That is a secret, Chen said with a smile. But I will tell you this, I wished for something I think we have a very good chance of keeping. His tablet chimed again. This time the message was from Captain Thax, the former Zephyrian officer who is now helping to establish the new galactic communication network. The message read, Admiral Chen, thank you again for your testimony at my trial. The clemency hearing went well. I begin my community service on Vega Prime next month, helping to rebuild their capital city. I wanted you to know that I have been studying human philosophy. Your species' capacity for forgiveness continues to amaze me. Chen smiled and typed back, Good luck with your new life, Captain. The past is behind us all. Focus on building something better. As the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, Chen reflected on the strange turns his life had taken. A year ago, he had been a retired military officer tending his garden and playing with his grandchildren. Then war had come, and duty had called him one last time. Now he was back where he belonged, on his porch, watching the sunset with family nearby. The galaxy was at peace, former enemies were becoming friends, and tomorrow he would plant new vegetables in his garden. Grandfather, Emma said sleepily, will you tell me more stories about the war? Someday, Chen promised. But tonight let us talk about more important things. How is school? Are you still having trouble with mathematics? As they talked about homework and friends and all the normal concerns of a 12-year-old girl, Chen felt a deep satisfaction. This was what they had fought for, not glory or conquest, but the simple right to live peacefully with the people they loved. In the distance, almost invisible against the starfield, a small transport ship lifted off from the local spaceport. It carried former Zephyrian prisoners who had been granted asylum on Earth, along with refugees from a dozen other worlds who were finally going home after decades of exile. The galaxy was healing. Slowly, carefully, but surely, Chen finished his cold coffee and stood up, his old joints protesting slightly. Come along, sweetheart. Your grandmother will be wondering where we are. As they walked toward the warm lights of the farmhouse, Emma asked one more question. Grandfather, do you think the aliens learned their lesson about not being bullies? Chen considered this. I think some of them did. The smart ones anyway. As for the others, he shrugged. There are always bullies in the universe, Emma. The important thing is to make sure there are always people willing to stand up to them. Will you teach me how? I will teach you many things, Chen promised. How to grow food, how to be kind to others, how to think for yourself, and yes, if necessary, how to fight for what is right. But let us hope you never need that last lesson. They reached the porch steps just as Emma's grandmother called them in for dinner. As they entered the house, Chen took one last look at the stars. Somewhere out there on thousands of worlds, people were going to sleep free for the first time in generations. It had been worth every sacrifice. Inside the house, the news was playing quietly on the television. The reporter was discussing the latest session of the Galactic Council, where representatives from over 200 species were working together to establish trade agreements, mutual defense pacts, and scientific cooperation treaties. Chen smiled and turned off the television. Tonight was for family, not politics. Later, after Emma had gone to bed and his wife had fallen asleep beside him, Chen stood once more at his bedroom window looking up at the stars. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new problems to solve, new relationships to build across the galaxy. But tonight, for the first time in 50 years, Marcus Chen slept peacefully, knowing that the universe was a little bit safer for his granddaughter than it had been for him. The old farmer had kept his promise. He had given them war when they demanded it. Now he could finally rest.